Let me see. It's going fast. See, someone is asking, Demo Goblin is saying, so you absolutely need this to be really good at this game. For real? Question, because I'm trying to get good at this game. Well, like I said, it's not a matter of you need this. That question doesn't work, right? It's like saying, so you're telling me you're at a culinary school, right? You're at a culinary school, and your professor who's teaching you how to make pizza, you're going to ask your professor, you're going to say, hey, buddy, are you telling me that the recipe here is absolutely necessary? I mean, I'm trying to get good at making pizza. Do I really need a recipe, or can I just fucking not follow any rules and stuff this shit in the oven? Basically, my point is, it's not a matter of whether you need it or not. It's a matter of you're gonna use it if you're good. It's natural. You naturally are gonna use it. Let's see, what else do we have here? When you get to that point, if you're really trying to get good at the game, you'll reach the point where it's like, oh yeah, now's the time where I use frame data. Boom. Duh. You know, it's like a natural occurrence when you progress in Tekken. Let's see here. Where's the best place to get frame data? That's a good question. I don't know if there's a singular source that is accurate, but it depends on the game. Whatever game you're playing, there's usually a source that's the most accurate. I don't know what it is for Tekken Tag 2 at the moment because I don't play the game competitively myself at the moment. But it's out there, that's for sure, and you can find it. Just ask around. I don't know where the most... Tekken is a Japanese website that has frame data, but you have to understand how to read Japanese frame data. It's a little bit more complicated because it's translated. So you have to understand that. Otherwise, you know, frame data is kind of one of those things where you got to find the good source. You got to find a good source. Unfortunately, Tekken has not adopted the in-game, in-practice mode frame data concept, even though NetherRealm Studios has included that in their games. And frame data has been just an essential part of Tekken for a decade, more than a decade. Still, they don't put it in the training mode. I'm really not happy about that concept, because when I say something like you need frame data and players go, okay, where do I get it? It's not in the game. That's really unfortunate. It should be in the game because it's such an important part of the game. So I don't understand why the developers of Tekken still don't put frame data in the game. It's really essential, if you ask me. And over here, Bloodhawk put a link in the chat room. It's to... I'll relink it. Let me get the link myself. I'm putting the link in the chat room. This is a good source for accurate frame data in Tekken Tag 2. Let's see. What other questions do we have here? Let's see here. Question. Aris, how do you begin to even learn frame data for each character? Where should you start if you already know the concept of frame data? Very good question. Oh, Harada face with clapping hands for this guy. Okay, the best place to start learning frame data is with your own character. Because earlier I was mentioning you can use frame data in a fun way to create strategies. And if you use it in this way, it really can be fun. It's like, oh wow, look at this cool new sword I have. I can use this sword to kill this guy because he has such a high resistance to magic. This is a piercing sword, and it allows you to pierce through his armor. It's the same concept. When you look at your own character's frame data, you begin to see your own character in a new way. Like, whoa, this move looks so shitty normally. Look, it has no range. But wait a minute, if I pin them against the wall, oh, this move is actually pretty useful. It has plus frames on block. Maybe if it counter hits, it might even wall splat. Boom, it does. Holy moly. You know, so basically the point is, looking at your own character's frames will really start to give you this like really robust three-dimensional view of how your character operates. Once you've learned your character's frame data and you know it like the back of your hand, it's gonna then be, oh, my buddy James plays Lars. I'm going to start to learn Lars's frame data because I'm getting tired of this shit. I know how my frame data works. Now let me pair that together with Lars and put these two characters together. How do they work together? Now you've created a matchup. Whoa. So now, by learning King's frame data, then learning Lars's frame data, I've created a matchup. And I feel like, oh, okay, this is a pretty good matchup for King. Or this is a pretty good matchup for Lars. You've created here. You've learned. This is one matchup. Boom. Now there's 50 more, or however many more there is in the Tekken you're playing. You know, really, it's the best way to start is with your own favorite character, your favorite, and then move on. And the next best thing I would recommend is pick a common nemesis, a common enemy that you oftentimes deal with. Maybe it's your friend James who plays Lars. Maybe it's Capos because you run into Capos a lot online. Whatever it is, one step at a time. It's really a good key. Okay, sorry those of you who asked the question during that. Feel free to repeat the question as long as it's not a shitty one, and I'll try and catch it. How do you go about learning frame data in a productive way? That's basically what I answered right now. Start with your character. Move after you learn your character, and I mean really learn it. Then move to your most common adversary, or maybe your two most common adversaries, and then go from there, one step at a time. That's how I used to do it. Well, I felt like I really learned how to play Tekken during Tekken 6. So I played Tekken 4, I played Tekken 5, and I incrementally learned. But when Tekken 6 came out, I was really attracted to that game. I liked the way the system worked. I liked the way it felt, and I felt like it was a lot of fun. So when that game came out, that's when I really started to think about how this game works and how I can win. How can I win against someone like Mr. Naps? How can I win against someone like, you know, anyone good? You know, I've beaten some pretty good players. When I thought about it, when I thought, how am I going to beat these guys? I had to look towards frame data. And when I looked towards frame data, then I looked towards their character's frame data. And I thought, okay, well, if I know my frame data, like the back of my hand, and if I know their frame data, like the back of their hand, then I know everything. I know everything that can happen. This guy, Mr. Naps, I'll use him as an example. Mr. Naps he's restricted to this character, right? In the case of Tekken 6, it was Brian, right? He's restricted. There's nothing Mr. Naps can do, no matter how smart or skilled he is, that Brian can't do. Brian is really the limit of his abilities in the game. So if I understand the character of Brian to its fullest potential, then I know everything. And in the Art of War, the formula is, if you don't know your enemy, but you know yourself, you will only win 50% of the time. And that's a coin flip. And I don't like playing coin flips, right? I like playing better than 50% odds. So if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you will win 100% of the time because you are never going to be surprised. It's never going to be a trap. And that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to emphasize here. The key to learning frame data is not only creating your own traps, but recognizing when your opponent is trying to create a trap for you. Frame data, extremely important, and picking your opponent and focusing on one step at a time, also very, very important. Can you talk about how to pick up on player habits and how to read your opponent? Well, you know, I've been talking about that this whole time. Really, ways that I like to pick up on player habits, other than just watching them, is creating tests, right? Safe tests. I want to test if this guy is going to take the bait. So I do a down 4 and I backdash. That is a simple, easy way of, like, reading your opponent and deciding whether or not he's going to do what I think he's going to do. You know, it's really simple. Boom, boom, backdash, right? I mean, simple as that. If you just take that as, like, this is one of a million possibilities, then I've introduced to you, you know, like, how to do that. It's really simple. Even a simple jab. I mean, if you jab your opponent and then backdash, or if you jab your opponent and sidewalk left, observe what he does. If you do it a second time and do it again, what did he do this time? You've done it 3 times now. Jab, sidewalk left. You have 3 like examples of what your opponent does when you make him block a jab and then sidewalk left. If you've seen it 3 times, you can begin to make educated guesses. If he did something stupid like a hop kick every time, or if he did something stupid like a down forward 1, every time I hit him with a down 4, he does a down forward 1. Boom, hop kick this clown. You know, I mean, it's simple as that. It's a matter of tests. Test them. You can test them with movement too. I mean, this game has almost an endless supply of ways to get reads on your opponent. Endless. You just fucking... There's so many ways. It's really the coolest part of the game. It's like a canvas, and you could just spray paint this motherfucker with anything you want. There's so many fucking moves, and there's so many universal moves. Just moving is a move. It's a decision. A sidestep left is a decision. A sidestep right is a decision. These are all available options to you that you can use to test your opponent. What is he doing? Backdash twice. What's he doing here? Sidestep right. What's he... Oh, he did that? I'm going to remember that. He did that shit 2 times in a row. Watch this. Boom! Tournament match is over. I won. The crowd goes wild. Aris beat Majin. How did that happen? Right? The crowd goes wild. How does Aris beat Majin at Evolution 2 years ago? It's not because he's better than Majin. No way. No way, Jose. Majin is a better player than Aris. 100 times in a row. But I was able to beat him because I studied this match like 2 days before he was my opponent, right? I studied this shit. I played against Cabal. I learned that, okay, if he does this, I gotta do this. If he does that, I gotta do this. Simple. Bing, bang, boom. Know yourself, know your enemy. It doesn't matter. Little Majin is restricted. There's only so much he can do with these characters. He's restricted, just like the same way I'm restricted by my characters. Now the question is, does Little Majin know everything about my characters the way I know everything about his characters? I don't know. We'll see. Boom! The guns fired into the air and they're off. Who knows more, right? I mean, that's really how the game works. I keep saying it in every tutorial, but knowledge is so valuable, not only in this game, but in all fighting games. Just knowledge alone can sway tournament matches by like crazy amounts. You know what I mean? Knowledge, so important. You know? Anyway, let's see what else we got in here. Any other concepts that man, a lot of the questions that were asked were still questions about frame data. I find that to be really interesting. Let's see. Well, you know, people are asking about specifics about electrics or whatever. I mean, those are the types of things that you have to really explore yourself. Every character is different. You know, like, let's see. What's a good example? Let's say a concept like Can, right? Can is arguably Asuka, or Oscar as some people call her, arguably her best tool. It's a 14 frame low, right? Low high, but the low is really what matters. It's a 14 frame low that jumps off the ground in approximately 10 frames, right? As far as I know. It might be less than 10 frames, but the point is it jumps off the ground, right? Your goal here is to counter hit with this. So you're not really thinking about anything other than the fact that it's 14 frames, right? If you counter hit with this, you're in home run city because it's going to be a launcher. Now, the way you apply this move is you understand in what situations can you even use it. In what situations can you use a 14 frame move? But you got to also keep in mind that it will jump over lows. So there are more situations than if it didn't jump. So, I mean, you really have to explore this. As I said, you got to learn your own character's frames. So whatever character you use, you got to learn that character's frames, and then once you know those frames, you got to learn what moves complement those frames, so you can tie moves together with frame data. That's the beginning. As I said, before you learn your opponent's frames, you have to learn your own frames. And when I say like the back of your hand, I mean literally, you know. I mean, if you ask this, there's this guy from Seattle. He was just teaching me some shit. His name is Monstroso, right? His name's Alex from Seattle. He's a Kazuya player. He showed me this setup where if you do an axe kick with Kazuya, you have 1, 2, and 3 options as Kazuya. So you do the axe kick, they block it, you have these options. The options that he showed me were covering all bases. So it's like, if I get them to block this axe kick, all bases are covered. Boom. He knows his character like the back of his hand. That's what I'm talking about. You gotta know like every option that your opponent has when you put them into this situation, and you gotta have the answer for it. What's the answer if they sidewalk right? Boom, this homing move. What's the answer if they try to attack? Oh, if they try to attack, you could do something like this, or whatever. You get my point. It's extremely important to know your own character's move list in a very thorough way before you start moving on and learning other characters. If you start moving on past your character too soon, you will get frustrated. You will feel like frame data is boring and for nerds, and you'll move on. So I don't recommend that. I recommend learning your own character's frame data one step at a time, being creative, using it to create traps, using it to learn about your character's moves. What sword can I use against what enemy? What weapon can I use here? Long range, let me use a sniper rifle. Close range, let me use a shotgun. You know, simple as that. Long range, sniper rifle. Close range, whatever, shotgun. You get my point. You get the parallels there. Let's see here. Other fighting games have zones, rushdown characters, etc. Does Tekken's roster have different characters that fit these roles? Okay, I've said this before. There's something very, very different about Tekken compared to Soul Calibur, compared to Mortal Kombat, or just about any other fighting game. The difference in Tekken is when you hit these buttons, the corresponding thing will typically happen in a generic way regardless of your character choice. So if you consider it that way, the cast is almost completely homogeneous. Every character functions in a very, very similar way. The details are very different. For example, King has a giant swing, and he also has this chest move, and he has this move. But those are all details. The point is that every character will backdash when you hit back, they'll sidewalk, and they'll forward dash. They'll also do a jab, and they all have throws, and they all have down fours, and simple stuff like that. This is why when you go and look at a player like Help Me is a Korean player, or even Knee, right? Knee is one of the best players in the world. Knee, you guys know him. He can pick any character and fucking kick the shit out of you no matter what, because he's just playing Tekken. He's not playing King. He's not playing Lars. He's playing Tekken. He's moving around, and he's letting you fuck up, and he's killing you. But that's only possible because this game allows it to be possible. In a game like Killer Instinct, or in a game even like Soul Calibur, Mitsurugi has a samurai sword. So when you hit AA with Mitsurugi, he's going to do some boom, 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 quick-ass samurai move. But Astroth has a giant axe. And when you hit AA with Astroth, that shit's going to go, woo, he's going to swing this axe around, right? So this game is very, very different than those games because of that. The archetypes in those games are very separated. So you have someone like a grappler, like Hugo and Zangief, where you don't want to be too close to them. You want to run from them the whole time. Though that does exist in this game to some degree. I mean, King is a grappler. But the way throws work, I mean, there are other characters that have 10-frame throws. And, you know, Giant Swing is a 10-frame throw. So it's not exactly unique to King because he's a grappler. It's just like, it's not necessarily an archetype, is my point. What you should take away from that is that it doesn't matter really what character you pick. Pick the character that you connect with the most. Pick the one that you really like. Pick the one that you really think is cool and you really want to use this character. Because in the long run, you got a lot of work to do. So you might as well be happy with the one you pick. You might as well really enjoy the tool you're using in this learning process that is Tekken, you know? There are no real archetypes in this game. And that's why players like me can win super easily with any character. Because it's really more about learning the game than the character, you know? Alright, let's go one more. Let's see what I missed. You know, and I really appreciate everybody in the chat room who has like a really progressive attitude. And, you know, of course I'm not catching everything that's being said in the chat room. So some people out there, you know, like Bloodhawk and those of you in the chat who are really being productive and helpful, I really appreciate that you guys are helping people out. Because, you know, I'm only one person and there's, I don't know how many people watching this. There's 700 people watching this. So 700 people ask questions, I'm not going to see all of them. So, you know, I really appreciate you guys kind of filling in the blanks, the stuff that I'm missing. Of course, that won't translate over to, you know, the YouTube tutorial or the YouTube upload, but at least it will help the people that are watching this live. Let's see here. How do you stop someone from ducking all of my throws? Well, I mean, I'd say that that should be relatively easy, right? I mean, when you go to select, before you even decide to do a throw, you have to have something that complements the throw, right? So for me, for King, as long as I'm not almost dead, which means if I get this hop kick blocked, I'm dead, right? As long as I'm not there, hop kick is my favorite go-to mid move if they duck. Like, I've been throwing this motherfucker non-stop. I've been throwing him with this shit. I've been throwing him with that shit. All these different moves. He's getting tired of getting thrown, and his throw break percentage is not very good. So he's going to start ducking. I should already know which move I'm going to use when he ducks. I mean, you have to already know that before he ducks. So that when he ducks, you don't have to think about it. You just do it. Like, oh, he's going to duck now. Boom! Look at this combo I'm doing, shithead. Don't duck. You better break these throws. You better stand up, break the throws like a man. And then, oh, he's breaking throws like a man, huh? Then you start throwing weird setups at him. Weird setups where he's not even thinking about the throw anymore. He's thinking about like, oh, what is this motherfucker doing? Oh, he threw me again. Fuck, I should have been sharper. You know, these are the mind games there. You know, like, you have to be prepared. It's all about being prepared. It's all about knowing what you're going to do before you do it. I talked last week about situations. Situations are really like the key word. Sorry, I worded that poorly. Situations, quote unquote, metal quotations, is the key word. If you're prepared for the situations, read The Art of War, you know what will happen. Aris will beat Majin if you're prepared for the situations. Even if he's not a better player. I don't think I'm a better player than Majin. I think Majin will beat more players than I will beat. I think Majin will break more throws. I think he will make less mistakes than I will make. But a player like myself can beat a player like Majin if I know the situations. And when this shit happens to me on the screen, I'm prepared. It's not like I'm caught with my fucking pants down and my dick's hanging out. I'm like, uh-oh, what do I do? I don't know what to do. My dick's out. Right? You don't want your dick to be out. You want your dick to be fucking protected by like 3 layers of clothing. You know? You're wearing 2 pairs of underwear. You know? That's how protected that shit is. I mean, you really have to be prepared. You don't want your dick to be out, but you want their dick to be out. You know what I mean? That's the key. The Art of War, dude. This is like the oldest fucking book there is. The oldest and first strategy book used by Fortune 500 companies to create business strategies and blah, blah, blah. The Art of War, simple as that. Know yourself, know your enemy, and you will win 100% of the time. Doesn't matter whether you're a good soldier, doesn't matter whether you're a good admiral or a good captain or whatever. The point is that you're prepared. You've done this 100 times in training. It's not even a matter of being good. It's a matter of like, oh yeah, when you do this, I do this. Boom. You're dead. Peace. Right? You get what I'm saying. Anyway. Hopefully that helped some of you guys out. I've been recently getting a lot of positive feedback from everyone who really appreciates these types of things. And as I said last week, I'm planning to do this type of a, hour-long or so type of a discussion every Thursday It's most of the time going to be about Tekken, at least until Mortal Kombat comes out. And when Mortal Kombat comes out, I will likely sidestep over and talk about concepts in that game, and I'll try and keep them so that, just like this frame data concept I talked about, it applies to really any game. It's more like an umbrella concept or strategy that you're applying to just winning, right? It's just really a matter of winning, right? Who cares about anything else? I don't know. See, this is where maybe you and I differ, internet, but all I really care about is winning in a tournament, right? That's really what matters. If you don't win in the tournament, it's like, whatever. Is it even fun, right? Winning 100 times in practice, I don't think it's all that fun. I don't even think playing 100 times in practice is all that fun. Personally, I think winning in a tournament is fun. And I think preparing for a tournament is fun. Because it's like, this is the war. I know the day that the war is going to be on. This is war day. And I'm preparing for the day of this war. This fucking jihad, this, Ragnarok or whatever's going to happen on this day, I want to prepare for this day. How do I prepare for this day? I look at all these different things that I think are difficult to do with my character. I practice all of them. So I'm ready. Okay, moving on. What are the most common and likely opponents and adversaries I will face? I'm looking at the tournament. Okay, Majin's going to be there. Okay, Cabal's going to be there. Okay, whoever the fuck else is going to be there. What characters do they use? Boom. Let me look at their characters. Okay, I know about these characters. Now let me look at some match videos of these motherfuckers. Let me see what they like to do. So I don't have to learn all this bullshit in the first round of my tournament fight. I don't want to have to learn all this shit, right? I'd rather know what I'm getting myself into. Boom, let me Google search this motherfucker. Oh, look at this guy doing this setup every time. Not against me, you're not going to do this setup every time. Not against me, motherfucker. Try it. He tried it. Boom, look at this fucking knee in your ass. Perfect. Simple as that. Simple as that. Preparation, being prepared, will get you the double. The W. I shortened it. It'll get you the double. You get what I'm saying, internet. Anyway, I think that's just about gonna wrap it up for, yeah, try it, bitch. That's how it works, man. Try it. Try that shit. I watch your videos, playa. Anyway, I hope you guys can at least take something away from that and apply it to your Tekken game. I think you can. I think I can. I'm going to tell you guys the truth. When I go back and re-listen to not only my tutorials, but other tutorials that, let's say, even like people like Rip or other random people, some random people out there have done tutorials for games that, I've watched things in the past. I've watched not even I guess they're tutorials, but I've watched videos of people like Jeff Schaefer. You guys don't even know who Jeff Schaefer is. He's an old school Street Fighter player. I've watched videos of Jeff Schaefer explaining concepts that he used fucking 20 years ago in Hyper Street Fighter 2, hyper fighting, right? He's explaining these concepts with Blanca, where he's like, if you got them in the corner and they jump up like this, you can move to this range and do this decision, and he can't do that anymore. No matter what he does, he can't do that. So he's explaining to me this situation in hyper fighting. I'm watching this, and it's like blowing my mind. I'm like, wow. Hyper fighting is a 20-year-old game. I'm going to use this strategy that he just talked about in Tekken 6. This is a true story. This is what happened. I was inspired by Jeff Schaefer, watching him talk about hyper fighting, and I directly applied his strategies to Tekken 6. I mean, it's really super dope when you consider the fact that you can really learn from strategies and apply them. That's why the Art of War is so cool. The Art of War is super cool. It's one of the best books ever because it doesn't matter what you like. You can apply the strategies in that book to whatever you like. It doesn't matter if you like fucking pinball or Dark Souls or basketball or bowling or sucking dicks. It doesn't matter what your favorite pastime is. The Art of War will help you improve at it. And that's a fact. That's a fact. And if you consider that, then that means any kind of tutorial can help you improve if you look at it with an open mind, right? So that's why I very often will glance at different types of tutorials or different types of like help strategy kinds of things. When I worked at the library, for those of you who don't know, I worked at the Los Angeles County Library for 6 years, right? When I worked at the library, the first books I started reading were non-fiction strategy books, like The Art of War, like the Book of Five Rings, like things like that, right? Books like that. Different versions of books like that, too. One of my favorite versions of the Book of Five Rings is the Martial Artist's Book of Five Rings. It's a very specific version of the Book of Five Rings, and I think that's the best version. It's called the Martial Artist's Book of Five Rings. That one is super, super good. After I got done reading those books, though, I was like, wow, you know, I kind of read all of the warfare-related, strategy-related books. I'm out of books to read these. I'm out of books like this to read, right? So then I start looking up on the computer, on the internet at the library, and I realize, wow, we have a lot of strategy books for poker, right? Poker strategy books. There are so many parallels that I found after reading books like Doyle Brunson's Super System or all those other poker-related books. There are so many parallels to Tekken, right? I mean, it's like, wow, they're talking about poker, and I'm talking about Tekken, and I'm applying the strategies, you know? So, yeah, you don't have to watch a Tekken-specific tutorial to kind of open your mind and make it work for the thing that you're doing, you know? I think it's really something that most people don't even appreciate or understand, you know? It can really help you. Anyway, I've been talking too much. Why don't you guys say something for a change worth half a shit? For the record, I don't think poker is a very good game. I think that it's a random game, and I don't like that. I played it for a while after I started reading poker books as much as I did, and yeah, I don't like poker. It's not a good game. To me, it's not a good game because it involves money, first of all, and losing it. I don't like that. And second of all, it involves a random factor that is too big of a factor for me in the short run. In the long run, the random factor becomes minimalized over a year or over 2 years or over 5 years. It becomes minimal because pocket aces are going to win more often than not. But when they don't win, oh, I can't handle that game. It's not fair. It shouldn't work. It shouldn't work that way. For me, it's not a game that I like because of that. That's why frame data doesn't exist in poker, because you can't have frame data because there is that one variable, the random factor. They could pull out any card and fuck you up. That's like every now and then, 1 out of 10 times, full crouch down forward 2 will be safe on block. That's no good. That's no good. That's no good. How do I apply the Art of War to losing my virginity? Well, you know what, buddy? Think about that. Think about it, dude. First of all, there are books for that too. I would recommend you start reading books on body language and you start reading books on socializing and social skills. There are a lot of books available and strategies available on how to socialize and how to read people socially. Some of the most socially awkward people in the world are only socially awkward because they don't know how to read their opponent. When you're talking to someone, they're not really like your opponent, but they are who you're talking to, right? They're like your partner in this conversation. And the worst, socially most shitty and awkward people don't know how to read these opponents. For example, you should realize that this person you're talking to doesn't think you're funny. And if this person doesn't think you're funny, quit making jokes or they're not going to like you. Right? Simple as that. I mean, read a book, motherfucker. That's really the answer. Read a book. If you're having trouble with anything, read a book. Someone's written a book about how to do it better. Someone out there has. Read a book. Google search. Go to Amazon. Read a book. Brush your teeth. Read a book. And that's the end of that. Oh, internet. You guys are alright. There's a book, I forget who the author is, but it's called Body Language. That's a really good book. That's a really, really, really good book. I forget who the author is, though, but that's one of my favorites. There might be more than one book called Body Language, though, so it might be very hard to find. I remember the cover is, it has red on it, and it has a few people standing there doing something like this, or like doing things like, you know, there's a few people standing there doing gestures, and that body language is what the book's all about. I only read R.L. Stine books. Goosebumps? Damn. Yeah, Goosebumps. I mean, it's better than nothing, but I think I never liked reading fiction books. It's not my thing. I mean, I don't like to use my imagination and read at the same time. No thanks. Reading is already hard enough. I'll just read and try and absorb and learn something from the reading. If I'm going to just be entertained by a book with no learning, it's not worth reading to me. I'd rather learn something, you know, at the end of all this effort I put into it. I'd have to see the cover. Let's see here. How to read a book. That's funny because I hella don't read now. I used to read when I worked at the library, because what else are you going to do? They didn't let us use the internet, right? And you're just sitting around. It's a room full of every book ever written, right? But, boy, you know, you got to pick the right book, or else you can really waste a shitload of time reading R.L. Stine novels. You know what I mean? Take a look. Reading Rainbow. Let's see here. That's it. That's the one. The Definitive Book of Body Language. That's the book. I read that book. It's a good book. This book, The Definitive Book of Body Language, let me put the link in the chat. It's an Amazon book. The reason I enjoyed this book is because it covers a lot of different things like job interviews, dating, social environments, you know, how to interact with different types of people. You know, there are some things that are just like huge in a job interview that you would never, ever even think about that this book talks about. So, I don't know. I highly recommend it. I recommend it. It was really good, if you ask me. How can you figure out what kind of playstyle will suit your personality once you start a fighting game? I don't think that's the type of thing you have to figure out. I think that's the type of thing that will happen naturally. If you play 100 games and then analyze the 100 games, you will realize, oh, I like to attack first too much, or I like to let the opponent act first a lot, or, you know, I really gravitate towards moves that kind of do this or do that. And once you kind of make that realization about yourself, then you can actively pursue moves like that. Like, oh, I'm the kind of guy that hop kicks a lot, right? I'm the kind of guy that really likes hop kicks, and that's what I really go for. So if you're that kind of guy, you might want to look for a character who not only has a very good hop kick, but also yields a greater reward for their hop kick, or has more ways to set up the hop kick, or whatever. If you like throwing a lot, maybe you might go with the throw character, etc., etc. You get the point. The real answer to the question, I think, is after actually playing for a long period of time and then observing what you've done, you should naturally see. If you are observing what your own matches, you should see what you're doing and make conclusions based on what you're observing. You know. Let's see here. Aris, how do you actually think during the game? That's an interesting question. Maybe I'll save that for another tutorial. That sounds like a good question that I think I'll cover in the future. Anyway, it's a beautiful sunny day today, Internet. I mean, it's gorgeous outside. I think it's... Let's see how hot it is today. I'll tell you in one moment. as soon as this junk tells me the temperature. Wow, it's 86 degrees outside. Holy shit. That's hot. That's like summertime temperatures. I'm looking forward to going for a walk. So what I'm going to do right now is, it's 4 o'clock. I'm going to go for a walk, and then I'm going to eat something, and then I'm going to come back in probably around an hour. So at around 5 o'clock, I'm going to come back, and I'm going to play something until about 7 o'clock or so. Then I'm going to take another break and come back at 8 o'clock with ATP Live. So that's going to be the podcast. I'm probably going to be Rip and Ricksta on. We were thinking about doing a GTA 5 heist during the podcast, but I don't think that's going to work out because Charles is going to be home later. So the plan as of right now is, I'm going to take a break, I'm going to eat something, I'm going to go for a walk, I'm going to come back, stream for about 2 hours, then take another break, and then we're going to do the podcast, and then we'll decide what happens after that. I really, really appreciate those of you who tune in and really give me positive or negative feedback. Whatever kind of feedback you want to give me, it's fine by me. I typically ignore really, really poorly constructed negative feedback, and I flush it down the toilet. But if you have some kind of really progressive, prolific attitude types of things to say, I really appreciate that very much, because it helps me produce a new topic for the next week. As I said earlier, every Thursday I'm going to try and do a tutorial of some type, probably focusing on Tekken for the time being, but when Mortal Kombat comes out, I might switch. But otherwise, thanks everybody for joining me. Hopefully you guys appreciate and learned from this. I would really like it if people learned from these tutorials and kind of used them to improve. That would be nice. Otherwise, thanks for supporting me by subscribing and just watching and shit. And boom. I'll see you guys in a little while. I'm gonna go for a walk. Take it easy, internet.